Saturday night. That means it's time for the Don Tony Show.
The wait all week long is finally over. Get Don Tony's perspective on current affairs in the world of pro wrestling and much more. The Don Tony Show.
And now your host, the man, the legend, Don Tony.
Much love, everybody. Good morning from my American friends and family out there. Good afternoon for my international friends. I want to welcome you to Saturday's edition of the Don Tony Show. It is April 29th, 2023. It is about 11:09 a.m. Eastern. And for my friends who are live in the chat, a little active, I need your help. Around 12 noon, which we will still be doing this episode, around 12 noon, the supplemental WWE draft will be coming in. And if anyone out there would like to assist in posting who has been drafted in the supplemental, I would be very much appreciative. This way we could cover it on this episode as well. Now, if you look at the show synopsis tonight, it's really about 4 topics, if you really look at it. Number one, Trinity made her debut for Impact Wrestling. We got a couple of photos. Very, very classy move by Mercedes Moné, who actually traveled all the way from Japan to Chicago to see and support Trinity up close and personal. We got a couple of photos of that. We'll talk about her debut and appearance and keep it in perspective, because a lot of people are looking at that and saying, wow, what a big, downgrade from WWE. It's the opposite. She's getting back into the swing of things. She will be back in WWE. This is to prepare her for the main roster return. We're also going to talk about this WWE racist lawsuit. And I got to be totally honest with you. This is very, very difficult for me as a middle-aged Italian white guy from Queens, New York, to talk about, because I know a few things that I am going to say later are going to anger some people. And, no question, going back to the Don Tony and Kevin Castle show days of the mid-2000s, I am very, very different. I'm a much different person now in a lot of ways. And, I am very much more aware that words matter and words can offend people and really hurt someone. But I also feel that there's a lot of people out there that are petrified, afraid to tell things like the way they are. So I promise you, when we talk about this WWE lawsuit, and believe me, I have the lawsuit queued up. Oh, wait, wrong screenshot. Where is it? Oh, okay. I know why you can't see it. Here's the screenshot. All right. We have the whole lawsuit. We have everything. I highlighted the points that I think you really would want to know about. So we'll get into that. But, there's going to be a couple of things I'm going to say that are going to anger some people, especially those who are black. Just going to tell you like it is a little bit later. I think a majority of you will understand my point, but we'll talk about that now. And I also believe that 1 or 2 people within WWE should be fired. So I think I'm very, very going to be very fair as far as when we review that. We're going to talk about the WWE draft and the upcoming supplemental for night 1. Some surprising moves. I love the analysts who dissect every little detail, every little thing. Cody Rhodes drafted to Raw. Oh my God, they're going to fucking give him the pity title. Well, why don't you let it play out, man? There's going to be trades. There's going to be moves. Let it play out. Remember, this is Triple H's creative. Yes, Vince gets some say as well, rightfully so. But let the story play out. Let it play out. Does anybody think, with how wonderful the Bloodline storyline has been up to this point, Everything with Cody Rhodes for the most part up to this point. You think they're going to blow it? And what about this awful, stupid, ignorant, premature ejaculating, reports that Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40 for the undisputed WWE Championship is on the table? Where do you think they got that from? You think they got that from Roman? No. You think they got that from Cody, from Triple H, from Vince McMahon, from any of those people in the lawsuit? Who do you think they got that from? They didn't get it from anybody. You know when that came out? Right after WWE decided to throw us a curveball about the draft. Now, Kevin Castle and yours truly, if you have not downloaded it yet, it is a must. We got into, and we still believe the Street Profits are going to split. We do believe almost everything that we predicted is going to end up happening, with probably the exception of Corbin to NXT. That is more of a fantasy than anything else. But check out our preview predictions about the draft. It is on DonTony.com, but I'm going to make a point. Understand that when we did this predictions show on Tuesday, we were under the impression that everybody was on the table starting Friday as of SmackDown. What WWE decided to do as a curveball on Friday was to announce, actually Thursday, was to announce that each night, SmackDown Friday, Raw Monday, each night will see a unique pool of superstars eligible. In simple English, not everybody could be drafted on Friday night. Some names were off the table. So now when you take Brock Lesnar off the table, when you take Charlotte Flair off the table, when you take out names like that, now you're like, all right, well, Roman's going to get drafted 1. That means Cody has to be drafted 2. The Usos were off the table, which means, okay, Roman gets drafted 1. The Usos could get drafted 2. The Usos were not part of the bloodline. It is kind of funny when they said yesterday, like, you can't draft 5 people all at one shot. Oh, yeah, like Legado del Fantasma, who is still perfect, by the way. Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde lost once again. The Latino World Order is still perfect. They have yet to win a match under the LWO banner. Zelina Vega has a better record than Legado del Fantasma. That's the facts. That's the truth. We've been talking about it for a few weeks now. Like 0-10, 0-11, something like that. But they threw that curveball. Took a lot of names off the table, which obviously makes this not difficult, but more predictable. So we're going to run down what went down yesterday with the draft. And I'm going to tell you some honest thoughts about it. Because again, when I said earlier that you have people nitpicking and analyzing every little thing, but when it gets to the kumbaya moment, Indi Hartwell, life is good. Oh, I just want to pet every little puppy. I want to have little rabbits running all over me right now. And that's not a shot on Indi Hartwell. I am a huge fucking fan of Indi Hartwell. I absolutely love her work. I support her for years. I want to see her in the main roster. But let's be a little realistic here. Who in their right mind thinks that Indi Hartwell is going to leapfrog all of the women that are currently either getting a push or have much higher status? Do you think suddenly she's going to start beating Bayley every week? Well, that won't happen because Bayley's on SmackDown. But you got Charlotte Flair on Raw, I would think. You got Becky on Raw, and where do you think Indi Hart? Is going to end up? We're going to have more of Index, which I'm fine with, until the majority of the WWE universe is no longer fine with it. Now what do you do? Tell me how she advances truthfully. You truthfully believe 6 months from now that Indi Hartwell is going to get some type of a substantial push on the main roster? I want her on the main roster, but I don't want to see her in comedy segments The Way. Everybody suddenly is a major fan of The Way. There's like millions and millions and millions, yet, they couldn't tune in when they were all together live on NXT back in the day. And let's also think about this. Candice LeRae, Chelsea Green, Sonya Deville, Dexter Lumis, Dolph Ziggler, Hit Row, Lacey Evans, Maximum Male Models, Mustafa Ali, Natalya, Omos, and MVP, the Viking Raiders, and Valhalla. Those are all the participants that are going to be in a supplemental draft for today. So now let's just call it like it is. You're going to say to me, suspension of disbelief, that Indi Hartwell should be drafted before Omos, Mustafa Ali, even Dolph Ziggler, Dexter Lumis. That's going to be interesting. If WWE drafts Dexter Lumis to SmackDown, yes, there could be trades. But if they draft him to SmackDown, that is going to be interesting. But you look at the remaining participants, Sonya Deville, Chelsea Green, which apparently are going to be drafted together. Let's be a little honest. Some of the draft yesterday, a little confusing, without a doubt. And the women's championship, what a hot fucking mess all of a sudden. You know why it's a hot mess? It's not the first time this has happened. It happened with Charlotte, and Becky back in the day, didn't it? Bianca Belair was drafted to SmackDown. And there was a pre-recorded message from Bianca in a hotel. And she's cutting a promo. I'm super excited going to SmackDown. I'm going to bring the SmackDown Women's Championship, and I'm going to defend it. This and that. And I'm watching it, and she finishes up with, mwah. And I'm like, mwah. She's had over a 1-year reign as Raw Women's Champion, and now that record is going to be pretty much stopped because they drafted Bianca Belair to SmackDown. She is already assuming the SmackDown Women's Championship. Go back and watch the promo from yesterday. And as you watch her promo yesterday from the hotel room, just think about Rhea Ripley. Is Rhea Ripley going to defend the Raw Women's Championship at Backlash? Bianca's already talking about how she's the SmackDown Women's Champion. But meanwhile, Rhea Ripley has that belt right now. I didn't see any of the usual suspects calling that shit out. Were they just afraid to? They were calling out, stopping her lineage. But I didn't see anybody bring up anything about Rhea Ripley. If I'm Rhea Ripley, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm SmackDown Women's Champion, So it was a hot mess yesterday. Let's be a little honest here. Now, let's quickly run down the draft picks in order yesterday. And by the way, a funny moment, I don't know if you caught it yesterday, but they had Rob Van Dam and Michael P.S. Hayes there, and they were doing a couple of draft picks. Now, RVD ended up announcing Gunther and Imperium, the full Imperium, to Raw, and also Matt Riddle to Raw, and Michael P.S. Hayes was handling a pair of SmackDown picks. If you look closely at RVD's entry, let me see if I could zoom in on it. Can I zoom in on it? Not really. Oh, there you go. Oh, there you go. It's upside down. Yeah, those things were blank. But you want to know something, though? I'm not sure if they were all blank because RVD had a lot to say. When you're announcing Imperium, it's a lot to remember. The funny thing is I had to watch it back because I thought maybe he had it upside down as a joke to Riddle. Because Riddle, 420, stoned, upside down, But RVD was announcing Imperium when he had the card upside down. It's funny. I saw, aspiring journalists saying, wow, Shawn Michaels looked at his card and was legitimately pissed. He looked legitimately pissed. He was looking at the cards and was legitimately pissed. What, he didn't peek when he had the cards in his hand in the locker room? Come on. Shawn Michaels' job is to bring people to the main roster. He has said it 10,000 times. Of course, you're going to miss some of the people that you're grooming, developing for the main roster. But at the end of the day, this was expected. This was discussed. You don't think that WWE went to Shawn Michaels and said, who do you think is ready for the main roster? Shawn, who do you think is ready? You think he said, oh, by the way, very cool moment, Grayson Waller. Grayson Waller giving Indi Hartwell a hug because they're both from Australia. That was a really nice moment. I mean, everybody pretty much just acting like themselves and not, being pretty much in character, with the exception of we may have Kaden Carter and Katana Chance once again NXT Tag Team Champions. I'll explain why in a little bit. Let's run down very quickly some of the picks. This is in order from yesterday. Not as many picks as you would think. A lot of people think, wow, big roster, a lot of picks last night. Not as many as you think. All right. And, obviously, no surprise, Roman Reigns remains on SmackDown. Drafted with Solo Sikoa and Paul Heyman. No Usos. Which, again, I find it interesting because of this storyline, because of what went down on the main event last night against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I mean, this is pretty much feeding into the idea that the bloodline will be disbanded. Keeping Solo Sikoa in the corner of Roman Reigns is fine. But, again, you had other people who were being drafted, 4 people. Paul Heyman, yes, he's a 5th person, but at the end of the day, you have the biggest, most important faction in the last 2 years and since September when Solo Sikoa joined it, and they don't get drafted together. So that, again, for storyline, I don't like it. But for the progression of the storyline, it is needed. Because remember, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, if you remember our predictions, we almost feel like they have to stay on Raw. And then you say to yourself, well, what do you do about the Usos? Because you kind of want to get the Usos away from Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. You feel like you gotta. But then if you leave them on SmackDown, then it's like, what was the purpose of splitting them up other than 3 days of suspense of what, would they dare put the Usos on Raw now? So that was your first pick. On the Raw side, no surprise there. Cody Rhodes is the first pick. Now, I should also tell you this before we go any further. The wrestlers who are not eligible yesterday to be drafted that will be eligible on Monday is Tozawa, Alpha Academy, Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo, Asuka, Austin Theory, Baron Corbin, Braun Strowman and Ricochet, Brock Lesnar, Bronson Reed, Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin, Charlotte Flair, Dana Brooke, Elias, Emma, Johnny Gargano, Judgment Day. And Judgment Day consists of Finn Balor, Damian Priest, and Dominic Mysterio, by the way. We talked about that back in December, that Rhea Ripley, still part of Judgment Day, but not really. Karrion Kross with Scarlett, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, LA Knight, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, Nikki Cross, Piper Niven, Rhea Ripley, Rick Boogs, Riddick Moss, Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, Shotzi, Seth Rollins, Tamina, Tegan Nox, the Brawling Brutes, the LWO, and the LWO consists of Santos Escobar, Cruz del Toro, Joaquin Wilde, Zelina Vega, and Rey Mysterio. The New Day, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, the Usos, Trish Stratus. Yes, they put Trish Stratus on there, which is very, very interesting. Would they dare put Trish Stratus on Raw and have her continue to feud with Becky, or will they try to delay it for several months by putting her on SmackDown? And Xia Li, plus select NXT stars. So now you look again. If Seth Rollins was available, there's a definite argument to make that Seth Rollins would have been drafted number 1 to Raw in storyline. You know, Cody Rhodes absolutely deserves it, but Seth Rollins would have been just as good of a pick. Charlotte Flair would have been just as good as a pick. So the fact that they, at the last minute, made these select picks that some people were not available, you had to draft Cody Rhodes to Raw. But again, once that announcement was made, then you had these goofs that are like, oh, Roman versus Cody, WrestleMania 40 is on the table. What the fuck does that even mean, on the table? LA Knight winning Money in the Bank is on the table. LA Knight winning one of those championships down the line is on the table. Gunther winning Night of Champions is on the table. You could say that about fucking anything. Who do you think is their source? Mikey the janitor that happened to hear it on the phone with Vince on a Zoom call? Nobody heard that shit. Don't buy it. Don't buy it. These are people just trying to stir conversation up. Look at me, look at me, look at me. Read my shit. Watch my shit. Look at me. There is no truth to that whatsoever. It's on the everything is on the table. Everything is on the table. But I do believe, in my opinion, that trades will happen. And I think Cody Rhodes will be traded to SmackDown. Now, obviously, we have to have some big pick on SmackDown worthy enough to be traded to Raw. Who knows? Would they dare draft Seth Rollins to SmackDown? A lot of people, including me, think Seth Rollins is going to be the first WWE World Heavyweight Champion in this current reign once they announce the champion at Night of Champions. They award the title. So could they possibly do a trade? Could Brock Lesnar be drafted to SmackDown, forcing a trade? Remember, Brock Lesnar didn't want to wrestle on SmackDown a couple of years ago. So trades are going to happen. Trades are absolutely going to happen. So Cody Rhodes being drafted to Raw right now, yeah, that's fine. That's fine, because Cody Rhodes is a very big name. And yeah, you do that for Raw for a little while, but you know, he could be traded, in a matter of days, in a matter of months. That's almost sausage when you really think about it. So as far as this hurting the storyline, until I see, as some people call it, the pity championship being put around the waist of Cody Rhodes, I am not buying anybody's self-induced drama. WWE fucked up. They fucked up with Cody Rhodes. They fucking had the perfect moment at WrestleMania. They fucked up. Now the Dusty makes no fucking sense because he's going to get the pity championship. They fucked up. They didn't do anything yet. Self-induced drama. That's what these people do. Self-induced drama. Seriously. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. Bianca Belair, the next pick to go to SmackDown. And yeah, as I said earlier, go check out her hotel video. Mwah. And yeah, you'll be left really scratching your head, especially when you think about Rhea Ripley. Becky Lynch drafted to Raw. So that's why I think Seth will remain on Raw, because they like to keep the couples together. The Street Profits drafted to SmackDown, drafted to Raw. The Imperium. Yes, that was one of our strongest picks when we did our prediction show. Gunther being in that tournament for Night of Champions, I think, is absolutely a must. I don't think fans would really have much of a problem if Imperium were end up winning the World Heavyweight Championship, although I don't expect that to happen this soon. But 3 hours and having them on Raw, that's a good thing, man. I am very, very happy that Imperium is going to Raw. I see Seth Rollins and Gunther having a feud almost immediately. Nothing against Edge, everyone. But again, you look at, the roster that was available for night one, you understand why Edge was drafted before others. At the same time, though, this is interesting because some people think Edge will rekindle a feud with someone who made his return yesterday. We talked about AJ Styles last weekend, and we were talking that AJ Styles, from what we heard, was going to be back in the Performance Center training, getting back for a return. And if you missed it yesterday, let's pull it up. There you go. That's from yesterday. AJ Styles, I know I'm jumping ahead, but AJ Styles, Gallows and Anderson, and Meechin, they all got drafted to SmackDown as the OC. Now, do not be fooled. AJ Styles is still about a couple of weeks away from a full-blown in-ring return. Yesterday, he hit the phenomenal forearm to one of the members of the Viking Raiders who were left laying. The Viking Raiders, their stock went down yesterday, by the way. All he hit was a phenomenal forearm, and next week's SmackDown, you have Gallows and Anderson taking on the Viking Raiders. So AJ Styles hitting a phenomenal forearm was cool to see, and he is, close to a return, but they are going to, treat it with baby steps. So AJ Styles, from what I understand, is not going to be wrestling next week. But, no reason to rush him. No reason to rush him. So Edge yesterday drafted to SmackDown. We'll see if he rekindles anything with Roman Reigns, which would be interesting. Matt Riddle will remain on Raw. And that's going to be interesting because from what I understand, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, they're not done, working with Riddle. And I'm not just talking about Backlash, because all of these roster picks will go into effect right after Backlash. The night of Backlash, as soon as Backlash is in the books, these roster changes will go into effect. So everything that you see, the first show that it will reflect will be the May 8th edition of Monday Night Raw. So Riddle will remain on Raw. We also have Bobby Lashley going to SmackDown. That was another pick. Yesterday we nailed almost everything. But again, it sucked because we were under the impression that everybody was on the table. I truthfully thought that Seth Rollins would have been drafted number 1 to Raw, and then Cody Rhodes would have been drafted number 2 to SmackDown. But I guess they want, I just thought of something that I might actually have brainstormed something just now that might sound petty, but I think you might actually agree with me. I don't think they wanted any perception of Cody Rhodes being number 2 and Roman Reigns being number 1. If you think about it, if everybody was still on the table, Seth Rollins could very well have been drafted number 1 to Raw. That means Cody would have been drafted number 2. And now you look back on it, Roman was the number 1 pick, but Cody was the number 2 pick. You were not worthy for enough. So it's almost like they did this because they had to give Cody the number 1 pick as the equal of Roman Reigns. That's why I believe trade will happen. I could hear Cody, I talked to WWE management, and Roman, I have been traded to SmackDown. He's got to do the announcement on SmackDown, though, because if he does it during an episode of Raw, I don't care how over Cody is, they're not going to be thrilled. Imagine that live Raw crowd, and Cody announced he's been traded, requested and been granted a trade to SmackDown. So Bobby Lashley on SmackDown, do we see him feuding with Roman Reigns? I think that is a possibility. That is a very good possibility. And, we still have Raw with the draft, and there's going to be some names going to SmackDown, but big names. I think Theory is a lock. Drew McIntyre. What happened? I thought he was going to be all elite. I thought, you can't mention him at all. That was another guy that we thought you bring him to Raw. In fact, now that convinces me that the Brawling Brutes will stay on SmackDown. And it's funny because Kevin and I were joking the other day that you probably have to separate Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. Even though we enjoyed what they were doing, you almost got to kind of keep them separated. So I think Sheamus, plus Michael Cole, it's fight night. Don't underestimate that. Could you imagine Kevin Patrick? It's fight night. It's fight night. Night. Sounds like the Noid from, what was it, Domino's Pizza? It's fight night. Drew McIntyre will be on Raw. Good move. Good move. No complaints here. Who else? The OC to SmackDown, as we said earlier. The Miz will remain on Raw. Damage Control to SmackDown. that kind of screws things up because everybody yesterday was like, well, maybe Io Sky will beat Bayley for the Raw Women's Championship. And then Io Sky will remain on Raw and she will be Raw Women's Champion. No. Unless maybe because she wins the Raw Women's Championship by default, Io Sky now has to be a Raw wrestler because she is a Raw champion, and maybe that's how you split up Damage Control. That is a possibility. That is definitely a possibility if you think about it. You know, Bianca Belair is now on SmackDown. She still has the Raw Women's Championship. Forget about her hotel promo yesterday. Mwah. Forget about a hotel promo. She's defending the Raw Women's Championship at Backlash. Somebody has to be on Raw with that title. Her opponent is also drafted to SmackDown. So could they possibly do that? If Io Sky beats Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship, could they decide, they announce that since Io Sky is the Raw Women's Champion, she remains on Raw? I know Austin is like, I'm kind of lost right now. Yeah, I don't understand why they did this the way they did, especially Bianca's promo yesterday. That, honestly, like, now I know what Tony Khan feels like when he smokes, like, some really good shit. Honestly, I think you smoke some really good shit and listen to Bianca's promo. It'll all make sense. Oh, yeah, it makes total sense. So this is intriguing. Damage Control on SmackDown, Bianca Belair on SmackDown, the Raw Women's Championship on SmackDown, and as of right now, Rhea Ripley is the SmackDown Women's Champion. Would you dare have Rhea Ripley take on Io Sky instead? I don't think anybody would want to see that. First of all, Zelina Vega, she's got to get twisted up like a pretzel for Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley, I think, calls her a pretzel. I'm going to twist you like a pretzel. And yesterday, Zelina Vega getting an unexpected victory against Sonya Deville. And then afterwards, actually landed a move on Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley was going to hit her with Riptide, and Zelina Vega reverses it, plants Rhea Ripley, and Rhea Ripley is like, what the fuck just happened? You are dead. You wait till we get to Puerto Rico. You are dead. Shinsuke Nakamura going to Raw. Next week on SmackDown, Shinsuke will be taking on Karrion Kross. So that tells me Karrion Kross and Scarlett will likely remain on SmackDown because it feels like they're doing the blow-off match very, very early. We'll see. But as of right now, Shinsuke Nakamura. And look, Shinsuke was another one that we said would be a great fit on Raw. I could see him going up with Rollins a couple of times if Cody stays on Raw for a little while, because I do believe Cody could stay on Raw for a little while. Why not? It's a 3-hour show. You know, you need drawing power, and Seth alone is not enough. Gunther alone is not enough. Gunther would, even if he wrestles 15 minutes, that is still 1/12 an episode of Raw. You're not going to have the Gunther hour every week. Shinsuke on Raw, I like it. I think that is a very good move as well. And running this down, there you go. The NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, Alba, Fyre, and Isla Dawn. Kevin and I talked about them the other day. Very, very worthy. Isla Dawn helping Alba Fyre big time. Alba Fyre is 1,000 times better as a tag team wrestler. And I'm happy that they made it to the main roster. But I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't know if anybody thought about this last night. As I watched that, all I kept saying to myself, that should have been Toxic Attraction. What really was the purpose of having them split up? It is fizzled. It is just totally, I mean, it's not completely dead, that feud, but it's a feud that nobody asked for, nobody wants to see. And that should have been Gigi Dolan and JC Jane. That should have been the team to go to the main roster. Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn are excellent. I have no problems with them. I think they were the best tag team in NXT. But now you're going to take them out of NXT, and who is your draw? Who is your star team? You're going to leave Katana Chance and Kaden Carter in NXT for the foreseeable future? They're not the focal point. They're not the cornerstone of the women's tag team division. Plus, they're not a ratings draw. I mean, are they purposely going to keep Gigi Dolan and JC Jane in NXT because they're one of the few that actually do draw some numbers? Will we get Mandy Rose returning? I still believe that now, with Endeavor merging with WWE is not going to be as kid-friendly as it was before. And I think, look at the social media stuff. We talked about that a month ago. That don't be surprised that wrestlers will be able to do social media again. Like, I'm talking about streaming channels, and now they're allowed to go on Twitch. A lot of this is Endeavor and their role and that freedom. So Isla Dawn and Alba Fyre, okay, I'm fine. But the idea that all the women's championships, now, let's also be honest. The name that you got to start thinking about who could be drafted to the main roster. Carmelo Hayes. Every one of us, at some point in the last couple of months, felt like Carmelo Hayes leapfrogged Braun Breaker as far as who could be money on the main roster sooner than later. I mean, that's not taking away anything from Braun Breaker. But Braun Breaker now experimenting, being a heel, and he's killing it right now. He has no history of playing that role. He didn't work indies. He didn't work, anywhere else before other than, in warehouses and in basements. And that's not a knock. I mean, Braun Breaker didn't just start wrestling when he went to NXT. But the thing is in front of live crowds, this is his first experiment. This is his first chance to test it in front of live crowds, and he is killing it right now. But a lot of us felt that Carmelo Hayes might just be that much better to fit in on the main roster. So now with NXT's champions on the women's side all getting drafted to the main roster, you start thinking to yourself, wow, we could very well see Carmelo Hayes go to the main roster. I don't know. I mean, because NXT is not just about ratings. All right, it's developmental. The numbers that they get are pretty much in line of what developmental should get. And it's still 5 times more than some other TV shows out there. I'm not talking about AEW, by the way. So, you got to keep some base out there. And at the same time, it gives opportunity for others. Now the question is, what happens to the NXT Women's Championship? Does it end up going to Tiffany Stratton? What happens to Roxanne Perez? So we'll see what happens on Monday's draft. I will let everybody know that in about 15 minutes, we should start getting results of the supplemental draft. And I know some of you in the chat were very kind to be willing to post them. So we will definitely bring them up as we go along. But that is your draft from last night, Friday Night SmackDown. That is the results from the draft. In conclusion, SmackDown did a hell of a lot better than Raw. If you look at it, SmackDown got the Bloodline, Bianca, Street Profits, Edge, the OC, Damage Control, Alba Fyre, and Isla Dawn. On the Raw side, they got Cody Rhodes, Becky Lynch, Imperium. The more I look at this, it's kind of split. It's more split than I thought it would be. I felt last night that SmackDown definitely did better. But now when you look at this side by side, this is not that bad. And remember, Raw's a 3-hour show. So there's going to be some additional names, brought to Raw. Now, all those names I mentioned earlier with tag teams involved, probably a lot of them will end up on Raw. Just to add up additional bodies, no pun intended, but we will know. We will know in a matter of a few minutes. But that is the results from yesterday's draft. Now, as far as match results go, yesterday on Raw, We had LA Knight over Butch. LA Knight insanely over with the crowd. They were behind Butch as well, but LA Knight, it wasn't even close. Crowd was heavily behind it. We had the conversation, a week or two ago, that better nights ahead, pun intended, that for all intents and purposes, LA Knight's dreadful run in the loss department was over, and this was done by design. The more he lost, the more fans got frustrated and wanted to support him more. That's when you got all the fake news. LA Knight winning Money in the Bank is on the table. LA Knight could be considered world heavyweight champion is on the table. LA Knight. Those are fans rooting for LA Knight that want to see that outcome, but that doesn't make it news. So LA Knight starting, nice match yesterday against Butch, gave him a lot of time, a lot of fun. Yesterday, the Street Profits defeated Braun Strowman and Ricochet and the LWO. Nice to see Braun Strowman back on TV. Yeah, I'm going to say it. Brian Alvarez, you couldn't just tweet a little apology to Braun Strowman? For those that don't know, him and filthy Tom Lawler had a field day laughing at Braun Strowman last week on SmackDown. Because Braun, remember, he threw Ricochet into the Viking Raiders and, it was a little bit short, just a little bit outside. And then Braun went through the ropes and just fell. And it was all funny and everything, but he fell because he was dizzy and he had a concussion. Now, I will defend Brian Alvarez for a minute. I will defend Brian Alvarez. That clip, I'm not going to play the clip because it's their show. I'm not going to take footage from their show. But, actually, I'll show you a couple of seconds. This is what they were doing. I got to start doing that. Is that how you could, show footage without getting flagged? But I'll defend him for a second. When they recorded that clip, it was not announced that Braun Strowman had a concussion. So they were not aware at the time Braun had a concussion. However, once we all learned that Braun Strowman had a concussion, the classy thing to do is a little tweet. Just learned Braun Strowman suffered a concussion during that match. That could have been the reason why things happened the way it did. We were not aware that he had suffered a concussion when we recorded this. We wish Braun the best. Not even there's no apology in there. You don't even need an apology. You just publicly wish him a speedy recovery. Maybe he did post it. Maybe he's got burner accounts or other alter egos that I'm just not seeing. Maybe I'm blocked from them. And I am a big supporter of Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. Big supporter for obvious reasons I've talked before. That's not acceptable. You couldn't even just wish him well. Where I come from, you would be called a dirtbag. I had to say it. So call it like it is. That's what we do. We call it like it is. All right. Let's get ready for the lawsuit. That's going to be a very difficult conversation for me to have because I know it's going to be a little, I don't want to say controversial, but it's going to be a little bit raw. Let me just say it like that. Before we do that, though, I would like to give you a little bit of a positive story, and that is Trinity made her Impact Wrestling debut. She will be on this Thursday's Impact with a live mic. All right. Well, when you say with a live mic, this is the live mic, and this is the segment that they're talking about. She made her debut yesterday in Chicago. And by the way, if you are in that area tonight, Saturday night, Trinity will make her in-ring debut taking on Kylan King. So Trinity is now part of Impact Wrestling. We've talked about this for about 2 weeks now. Last week we talked about, her getting back into wrestling. For some reason, people are calling this a step down, a downgrade. Mercedes fucked up Trinity's career. How? Because Mercedes is now getting a bigger opportunity. See, if you were honest with yourself all this time, you knew that at some point that Mercedes and Trinity were going to go their separate ways. They're just not on the same level of the food chain because of the way they've been used in the past. It's just a fact. But that's what happens when people insist that everybody is their equal. Everybody insists that everybody's equal. Everybody's equal. At some point, reality kicks in. And you got to say to yourself, well, you know what? This was expected. Trinity is slowly getting back into the routine of wrestling. All right. She hasn't been privately wrestling, for little children's centers or, for money on the side. She hasn't been doing it. So you got to get back in the swing of things. You want to call it ring rust, call it whatever you want. But if you want a little taste, I can't show you the video because I'll get my ass in trouble. But if you want a little taste of what you will hear on Thursday, well, here you go.
And I've arrived in Impact Wrestling!
I should hold the phone like Alvarez. That's enough. Yeah, we don't need to see anymore. We don't see anymore. Just watch it Thursday. Give them the rating if you have the Nielsen box. Now, you want to see something cool? Mercedes Moné, the former Sasha Banks. Sorry for the awful picture. I don't know what it is with some fans with cell phones. They seem to have like 1990s burner phones. How come nobody fucking has like 8-pixel cell phones anymore? But she was in attendance to see Trinity's debut, and here is a photo of them. I would have probably taken the feathers off first before having a nice hug, but still a nice moment. Nice moment to see that Sasha came all the way from Japan to show support for Trinity. So very cool. Very cool. All right. Let's talk about this lawsuit. If you saw my thumbnail for the episode, hey, racist, Mr. McChairman, give me my job back. Oh, yeah. This person, Brittany Abrams. No, I think it's Abrahams. We'll just say Abrams. In her lawsuit, she wants to be reinstated. Imagine that. She's calling a lot of white people in the creative team racist and wants to be reinstated. That's interesting. She's been fired now for about a year. This lawsuit coming now is what we warned you was going to happen a couple of weeks ago, that now with World Wrestling Entertainment Incorporated, soon, closing up and reforming as a new corporation with Endeavor, you got to speed up some of these lawsuits. So you're going to see little things, that one law firm that sues over stock transactions all the time, you'll see more lawsuits there. But all right, I'm going to show you the court documents, and I've highlighted some things that I feel is very important that you should know about this. And I want to make this clear from the beginning. There are some people in this lawsuit that I personally am surprised still have a job in WWE. Ryan Callahan is the name on Wednesday that nobody seemed to know, including me. He is the one that seems to be, how do I explain this? He thinks he's like a Howard Stern with his comedy. Now, I'm not saying that Howard Stern would bring up 9/11 jokes or anything like that, but like to just throw stupid jokes out there, You're like, oh, let's do this for Mansoor and blah, 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 blah. Oh, what do you suggest? Oh, when we make them behind the 9/11 attacks. Like, there's some dirtbags that would make stupid humor like that they think it's fucking funny. It's not funny. But I'm going to be totally honest with you, and I'm going to show you. You could see the papers. You could see the highlighted sections. What I got from this lawsuit was this, and I put a little teaser on my Twitter, which obviously, because it's not fuck you, Vince, it doesn't get any tread at all. But this is what I posted a couple of days ago. I posted a little clip from the lawsuit, and the clip that I posted was this. By way of example, in around the spring of 2021, Callahan pitched a white Caucasian male wrestler with a hunting gimmick, hunting a black wrestler for fun. In a nutshell, the said hunting gimmick pitch for new wrestlers Shane Thorne and Reggie was, since Shane is Australian, we would make him like a Crocodile Dundee hunter, and instead of hunting crocodiles, he hunts people. Subsequently, a storyline was pitched by Callahan that Shane would capture Reggie, currently beat him up. Reggie would always escape after being captured. Now, what I wrote on my tweet was, for those DMing me about this WWE lawsuit, I will discuss it Saturday. I want to read it. I want to do some refresher of the WWE product from 2021. I want to do a little research. I do not want to cherry pick WWE stupidity based only on race, religion, and I've already found some 24/7 title dumbness related to these claims. Okay. I'm going to throw part of it right out there. Black people over the years have been treated tremendously worse than white people. Racism, biased, stereotypes. Somebody, black walks down the neighborhood. What are you doing here? What am I doing here? I'm going to the store. Like, you hear stupid shit like that all the time. And it's awful. It's awful that in 2023, it still goes on. It goes on in my neighborhood. It goes on in your neighborhood. I don't know if we ever get to that moment where everybody is colorblind and everybody sees each other the same. Understand, though, that the opposite can happen as well. As I read this lawsuit, this writer, and she's from Brooklyn, New York, by the way, she's black. And what came across to me early on is that when Karrion Kross gets a dumb fucking mask on his face, when other wrestlers who are white had some really pretty stupid gimmicks, stupid storylines, eyeballs being ripped out and other shit, when Dana Brooke was doing goofy stuff with the 24/7 title, like when white people were in dumb storylines, it's not mentioned. But if a black person is in a dumb storyline, it's racist. That's how it came across right away. And let me get back to my tweet, because I want to warn you. About those Wrestling Inc. sites and all that other. And I'm sorry I have to call out an individual site, but I'm going to use them for example. And if you think I'm lying, or making it up, go look for yourself, okay? I want to tell you something. When I started looking into this, I contacted someone that I'm friends with in Florida. And he's the one that gave me all the stuff about scripts with Reggie early on that we were talking about that no one had. Okay. I said, what's the deal with some of this? And he said, this woman, all it was the skits of Reggie, because his Cirque du Soleil antics, that they were doing this to showcase how talented Reggie is with flipping and this and that. And people would be chasing Reggie for the 24/7 title. And one of the persons that would chase him would be Shane Thorne. Shane Thorne was going to capture Reggie and, beat him up and take the title. And that's all it was. There was nothing about color in it. It's Reggie had the title, and Reggie would be able to escape in ways that the regular human being out there couldn't do. And if you go back to 2021 when Reggie was the 24/7 champion, look at all of those back. And mind you, we were in COVID. Mind you, we didn't have live crowds. So there was all these skits in the locker room, in the back, on the street here, where Reggie would do these insane stunts to get away. And this person, because Reggie was being hunted, it's racist. It's racist. And why I brought up those websites is because of this. Fightful wrote about this. I'm going to read you very quickly a paragraph from Fightful that Wrestling Inc. and a lot of websites cut and pasted. Ryan Callahan came under the fire for a pitch that would have seen Mansoor revealed as keeping a secret that he was behind 9/11. We were told in the past that Mansoor and Callahan had maintained a good relationship, and talent was shocked, baffled, and disgusted that this was even something said. Callahan had actually been let go by the WWE in 2019 after a disagreement with Dave Kapoor. Upon his return, he worked his way to the top of the SmackDown writing team. Based on what we heard, the 9/11 pitch hadn't even made its way back to Mansoor before the news dropped. Those in the know said it was a joke in poor taste and not a serious pitch. Apollo Cruz's Nigerian accent gimmick was also outlined in the lawsuit. However, Fightful has long been told that the accent was pitched by an active wrestler. There was a pitch made by Vince McMahon directly to Mustafa Ali in late 2021 that Fightful Select had reported on and noted it was something that Mustafa Ali would have never done. We still haven't gained clarity on what that was and claim that it was just as bad as the Mansoor pitch. Okay, let me stop right there for two reasons. Number one, earlier in that article, they said that the Mansoor 9/11 was never a pitch, but a bad joke. What was the tasteless Mansoor pitch that, has everybody up in out about? Is it the love storyline with Aaliyah and Angel Garza, which we will get into in a moment? Now, what a lot of websites did was they took those segments and they put it on their website about Vince McMahon pitched something even worse than Mansoor 9/11, about the Nigerian accent that was racist, about Reggie being hunted by a white person was racist, and they put that on there, especially Reggie being hunted. All these websites, go look at the articles, more details about the racist lawsuit, and they focus on Reggie being hunted as a black man. The paragraph that every single one of these websites ignored was this one. Remember my tweet. Now I'm going to read you something. Remember that tweet. Fightful reached out to Shane Haste, who is Shane Thorne, about the pitches made regarding his character in Reggie. He said he can't speak how it was elevated to Vince. The elevated pitch was to Vince, but the version he heard didn't have anything to do with race. And instead, it would have been more about the entire 24/7 title scene, with Reggie actually escaping most of the traps with acrobatics. 24/7 title dumbness. How come R-Truth is not considered to be racist the way R-Truth had to escape with those titles? Why is it Reggie? Because as I read this lawsuit, I have come to my conclusion is that you have a black writer on the WWE team who looks at everything, a lot of things, through color only. If a white person was being hunted and held and beat up, it's just a storyline. If a black person is being hunted and held, it's racist. And unfortunately, that is still a problem amongst society on both sides, white people and black people. You have white people that look at everything as white and black. You have black people that anytime something it doesn't go the way of a black person, it's racist. And as I go through this lawsuit, I can't help but to say to myself, look at the chair. This fucking chair. This chair. Look at this chair. Now, let me make this clear. This Ryan Callahan making the joke about 9/11, the fuck out of my company. There's people on this creative team that should be fired. Is it on the level of this lawsuit? Let me show you some of the papers. Do we have any results of the draft so far? We're at 12:10. Any results of the draft before I start breaking down these court papers? Okay, not yet. We have the draft watch. We have the draft watch, so we will definitely cover it. But all right, so now for my friends in audio only, no worries. Sit back, relax. I'm going to read you excerpts from this lawsuit. For everybody on video, if you would like, you are welcome to look at your screen and just pay attention to the highlighted areas, because those are the areas I think really sum up what this lawsuit is and what I think it isn't. Now, Brittany Abrams is suing WWE, the company, and then the following people individually. She's suing Chris Dunn, Ryan Callahan, Jennifer Pepperman, Christine Lubrano, Mike Heller, Vince McMahon, and Stephanie McMahon. And by the way, she points out in this lawsuit that all those people are white. Okay, let's go down this list. Okay, defendants repeatedly subjected the plaintiff to unlawful discrimination and a hostile work environment, as well as unlawful retaliation for complaining of the defendant's unlawful employment practices, including her complaints of racial harassment and discrimination and other wrongdoing. Brittany Abrams, referred to as plaintiff, is an individual black African-American female who is a resident of the state of New York, Kings County. She is therefore a member of multiple protective classes. At all times relevant to this complaint after April 7th, 2022, plaintiff was and still is a former employee of the defendants of WWE. All right, now I'm going to give everybody a little bit of a lesson about temp agencies. That's not a lawsuit, but nobody out there picked up on it, but I did, and I'm going to share it with you. We'll get to it. Now, she runs down each individual, and I'm not going to read every little part of it, but you get the gist of where this is going. At all times, WWE employed defendant Chris Dunn as a senior writer. He held the supervisory position within WWE, controlling many tangibles aspects of the plaintiff's job's duties, including holding the power to control the plaintiff's work duties, schedule, and discipline. Dunn is an individual, white, Caucasian, male. At all times, WWE employed defendant Ryan Callahan as the lead writer. Callahan held and still holds a supervisory position with WWE, controlling many tangible aspects of the plaintiff's job duties, including holding the power to control plaintiff's duties, work schedule, and discipline. Callahan is an individual, white, Caucasian, male. At all times, WWE employed defendant Jennifer Pepperman, who held and still holds a supervisory position with the WWE, controlling many tangible aspects of the plaintiff's job duties, including yada, yada, yada. Pepperman is an individual, white, Caucasian, female. At all times, WWE employed defendant Christine Lubrano as senior vice president for creative writing. Lubrano is an individual, white, Caucasian, female. At all times, WWE employed Mike Heller as the lead writer. Heller is an individual, white, Caucasian, male. At all times, WWE employed defendant Stephanie McMahon as the chief executive officer. Miss McMahon is an individual, white, Caucasian, female. At all times, WWE employed defendant Vince McMahon, WWE chief executive officer. He's an individual, white, Caucasian, male. Mr. McMahon held and still holds a supervisory position at WWE, controlling many intangible aspects of. Okay. This is all in the lawsuit. All right. So now we start getting into some more specifics. At all times, WWE employed Miss Kyla Silvers, hereinafter referred to as Miss Silvers, as a writer. Miss Silvers is an individual black African-American female. Miss Silvers was a victim of and witnessed to the unlawful discrimination, retaliation, and otherwise unfair employment decisions and actions taken against the plaintiff. She is now listing people who they claim are witnesses to what this person is accusing, okay? These are people on the writing team, by the way, everyone. She brings up Chad Barbish, who's a white Caucasian male, Brian Parisi, white Caucasian male, Andrea Listenberger, white Caucasian female. These are witnesses to what she alleges. So now, here's the allegations. On or about November 3rd, 2020, WWE hired plaintiff as a temporary employee writer for their flagship SmackDown TV series. Remember November 3rd. Remember November 3rd, because there's something omitted in this lawsuit that's very important. At all times, plaintiff was an exemplary employee who did not disobey orders or directives from her supervisors or superiors. Plaintiff performed all duties assigned in a diligent and thorough manner. Throughout her time as WWE writer, plaintiff received numerous compliments for her work, including praise from WWE executives, defendant Mr. McMahon, and Bruce Pritchard for her writing. Mr. Pritchard even proposed that the plaintiff write all vignettes for both SmackDown and Raw as an additional writer position. Plaintiff always got along well with her coworkers. By way of example, plaintiff's performance reviews earned the plaintiff increases in salary based on her excellent work. In or around May 2021, defendants offered the plaintiff permanent employment. Okay, my friends, why is that important? See over here, she was hired November 3rd, 2020. In and around May 2021, she was offered permanent employment. Here's the deal. When you work for a temp agency, if you work for an employer for 6 months, the employer has to make a decision to hire you as a permanent employee. And then they pay the temp agency a fee. So, because they're the ones that actually provided the person. See, let me explain it like this, without getting into a whole long story about this. When my wife is a great example. She won't come in here, but she would be able to tell you in a second. Honey. No, she's probably taking a shower. She works for a temp agency, not anymore, but she worked for a temp agency. When WWE is looking for a writer, temp writer, they actually hire the temp agency. So if you go back to the lawsuit even earlier, when she says when she was an employee of World Wrestling Entertainment, look at the date. Oh, listen, when you work for a temp agency, all right, when you work for a temp agency, how many months when you're working for someone that they have to decide if they're going to bring you on full time?
After 6 months.
So that's what happened with you. After 6 months, they
get
had
to choose if they want to extend you without hiring you permanently, or if they want to hire you permanently, and then they have to interact with the agency and see if there is a charge to buy you off from them.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you. So they can extend you for an additional amount of time, but usually after 6 months, they make a decision if they want to hire you permanently. And technically what happens is that WWE would buy her out from the agency. So this lawsuit, it looks more like, oh, after 6 months, we were so satisfied that we bring you on as a full-time. WWE had to make a decision after 6 months. So it wasn't that they just decided. I just wanted to point that out because a lot of people don't know that. So I'm always trying to give you straight up facts, everyone. I know it's boring sometimes, but I think it's very important to know. Okay. Plaintiff asserts that defendants engaged and continue to engage in a pattern of practice of discrimination against black female employees, African-American female employees, and employees who engaged in protected conduct on behalf of themselves and other minority employees. By way of example, within or around the plaintiff's first 2 weeks of employment, she shadowed a male, white Caucasian writer, defendant Dunn, who wrote a backstage scene for Miss Bianca Belair, a black African-American female wrestler. Upon information and belief, Ms. Belair is one of two dark-skinned black African-American female wrestlers. The said scene included offensively racist and stereotypical jargon, which the plaintiff found objectionable. By way of example, according to the script, Dunn intended Ms. Belair, the said black female wrestler, to say, don't make me take off my earrings and beat your ass. Okay. Apparently, in the black culture, everyone, that is like a stereotypical phrase that is like stereotypical amongst black women. You know, if you picture like hockey, you drop your gloves and you brawl. You take your shoes off and you brawl. You know, in a black culture, if you say you're going to take your earrings off and you brawl, apparently that's racist. I'm not going to judge that because I'm not black. And, you know, like when somebody says to me, hey, Anthony, Prince Spaghetti Day. You know, it's an old commercial making fun of Italians and a kid named Anthony. Like, I don't take it as racist. I'm like, outdated joke. I've heard it too many times, you know. But for some people out there, they might get extremely offended. My honest take from this is she got a job working for an entertainment company. There are many movies out there that have storylines involving terrorism, involving abuse. You could have stereotypical where a black woman, look at the BET channel, black woman gets treated like shit. She gets used, abused, and then at the end of the movie, she somehow gets, you know, the upper hand, ends up 10 times better than her abusers, and she stands on top, and Medeja makes a sequel. You know, like, there are movies that, but she's working for an entertainment company. And, you know, if you're that offended about something like that, doesn't make it better. But, you know, you look at some of these examples and I just say to myself, like, you're filing a 50-page lawsuit demanding millions upon millions and your job back. Because you feel like, because a writer says, you know, don't make me take my earrings off and kick your ass, that's like racist to the point of a lawsuit. Let me continue. Plaintiff asserts that Miss Belair uttering the line was and still is negatively stereotypical of race and gender, and the plaintiff found it offensive. Prior to the writing of this scene, WWE writers commonly complained that they didn't know what to do with Miss Belair. As a result, plaintiff undertook researching Miss Belair's background and discovered a fascinating family tree, including an aunt who helped desegregate her high school in the 1960s and an uncle whose contributions to science were world-renowned. Between the lines, everyone, Miss Abrahams thought that would be a great storyline for TV. We got something sort of with Lacey Evans, with her history with her family and everything, and we saw how that was received. All right, but to her, this was an amazing storyline that would be, you know, and it's a beautiful story. I want to make that clear, everyone. That is a beautiful story to learn about Bianca's background. Should that be a storyline? I'm not so sure. Dunn allowed plaintiff to write the first draft of Miss Belair's scene. So the plaintiff included positive references to Miss Belair's rich family history and sent it to Dunn for feedback. She was writing a storyline based on this. Dunn told the plaintiff that the draft looks great. I'm going to make some edits and submit it to Mr. Callahan. However, Dunn subjected plaintiff's draft to substantial editing, including inserting the said racial and gender stereotypes. Don't make me take me out. The same night, plaintiff complained about the racially offensive and discriminatory nature of the scene to one of her supervisors, defendant Callahan. Plaintiff emailed Callahan and said, I know I'm new. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or step on Dunn's toes, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Ms. Belair's scene includes racial jargon and offensive stereotypes, particularly her go home line. Plaintiff also requested clarification for protocol on moving forward with her complaint. In conversation with Miss Belair informed the plaintiff that she told Dunn 3 different times, I don't want to say that line, but he never listens to me. He puts that line in every week. Miss Belair said the script's discriminatory lines made her look ghetto. Plaintiff relayed this information to Dunn and politely offered to edit the lines. Let me stop right there. If Bianca Belair was offended by this, that right there should be the reason why they take it out. All right. So I'm not questioning, their racially sensitive stuff, but understand what the storyline this person was trying to create. And I think about the Lacey Evans, background, and that didn't seem to have gone over all that well. So anyway, despite the plaintiff's complaint, defendants failed to refuse to take any immediate or appropriate corrective action in response. Plaintiff never received any form of response from Callahan, verbally nor email, never spoke to the plaintiff about her email or the scene. Additionally, WWE's failure to refusal to address the plaintiff's complaint emboldened WWE employees, including Dunn and Callahan, to further discriminate against and to retaliate against the plaintiff in response to her protected conduct. All because she objected to all of this. She started filing complaints and, turned this into what it was. Now she says that because she made the complaint, they were out to get her. If you really read the way this is written. Okay, let's continue. Let's get to a little bit more with Mansoor and a few others. Okay, let's get to Reggie first. Okay. By way of example, it was discussed in the WWE Writers Slack channel before a show that a new wrestler, Reggie, would dress in drag, complete with wig and tights, so he could partner with Carmella, a female wrestler, in a tag team match against other female wrestlers. I immediately thought of Santino Marella. Reggie was going to dress as a woman so he could team with Carmella. She points out that Reggie is a dark-skinned, African-American, black, straight male wrestler. Given this pitch was shared in the Slack app, defendants Mr. McMahon and Miss McMahon, as well as other WWE higher-ups, including Mr. Pritchard and Ed Koskey, were included on the thread. Plaintiff's co-worker, Miss Lidstenberger, responded to the thread, observing that putting a straight black man in drag might perpetuate harmful stereotypes that would offend viewers. Why is the fact that Reggie is black, what does that have to do with it? Like when he did it with, and I'm not saying I like the Santino Marella either with Santina, but why is this racist? If anything, I could see if women got mad at it, like why is it black? But this is entertainment, and I just don't get where this racist element is coming from. Again, this is someone, like if it was a white wrestler dressed as a woman, would it be in this lawsuit right now? Well, let me continue. WWE eventually scrapped the discriminatory pitch, but only in response to a white Caucasian's individual protected conduct in the form of Mr. Listenberger's complaint. Interpretation, the only reason why it was dropped because a white person requested it. By way of another example, WWE forced Apollo Crews to speak with a Nigerian accent just because of his Nigerian lineage. Apollo Crews is a black Nigerian-born male. Plaintiff emailed Callahan and complained about the offensive nature of the requirement for Apollo Crews to speak with a stereotypical and exaggerated Nigerian accent. Maybe it's a bad example, everyone, but I think about Tony D'Angelo. Tony D'Angelo with the extremely exaggerated Italian accent. Is that racist? Is that stereotypical? Again, this is someone that, in my opinion, you could treat every employee in the company equally and offer storylines equally. But if the person happens to be black, that's racist. That's how this lawsuit comes off to me. I'm just being honest. This Callahan guy is a dirtbag. And honestly, I'm a little surprised that this guy works for this company because he does come off as a dick in this lawsuit. But as you read this, you know, is this grounds for this kind of lawsuit? And why the fuck would you want to be reinstated back at your job? All right. Despite plaintiff's complaint, another complaint, Callahan failed to refuse to take corrective action. As a result, Callahan and WWE forced plaintiff to require Apollo Crews to speak with a racially artificial Nigerian accent. By way of another example, in and around the spring of 2021, Callahan pitched that a white Caucasian male wrestling with a hunting gimmick would hunt a black male wrestler for fun. In a nutshell, the hunting gimmick pitched for new wrestlers Shane Thorne and Reggie was, since Shane is Australian, we would make him a crocodile hunter. Instead of hunting crocodiles, he hunts people. Subsequently, a storyline was pitched by Callahan where Shane would capture Reggie, constantly beat him up, but Reggie would always escape after being captured. Holding Reggie captive in cages was also discussed. Plaintiff found Callahan's pitch highly offensive and objectionable. Guys, I don't care who gets upset at me, but you go back to the 24/7 title, you go back to Reggie escaping, and because a wrestler, the whole idea of the Benny Hill, skits was to try to catch him. He leaps, he jumps, he escapes. They were dumb. I hated them. But to look at this as a black female writer, to look at that and have that much anger, and you in your heart and your soul believe that that is offensively racist, this and that. Why is she working in like an entertainment field? Why is, and listen, if anybody's going to say to me, why is WWE hiring, people like this? You don't know what is going to transpire with someone until something happens. I brought this up in my job. I have some customers who are extremely difficult to deal with. And I come home and I sometimes talk to my dad. He's like, how was work? And I'm like, oh, it was tough today. So-and-so is. And my father would say to me, like, why do you keep that person as a customer? Like, why do you bring these customers? Why do you take these customers? And I say to him, I say, because when they first come in, I have no idea what kind of customer they're going to turn out to be. But this is obviously someone that anytime a skit happens and it involves somebody who is black, that it's racist and offensive. And I look, I'm a white guy and I get it, but I'm sorry, man. I just can't buy that this is all the Bianca Belair stuff. Yeah, Bianca complained. Absolutely. You're talking about one incident. I mean, if you read this entire lawsuit, they bring up 3-4 incidents. Apollo Crews' Nigerian accent, Reggie and Shane Thorne, Bianca Belair. If you're going to file for millions and millions of dollars, if you got to list every fucking incident that comes to mind. If you felt Bearcat, I don't know if she was there when Bearcat, if you felt that was racist, you got to throw it in there. If you felt this was this, you got to throw it in there. None of the R-Truth stuff offended you? Maybe R-Truth went up to her and said, dog, this ain't racist. This is entertainment. The people, everybody wants to get my championship. They don't want me to do this. They're going to hold me down and say that it's not racist. Maybe that's why some people are not in on this lawsuit, because these wrestlers do communicate with the writers. Sorry. So let's bring this home, because we're really talking a lot about this. But I wanted to bring up some things. Okay. Plaintiff again objected to her superior's racially motivated misconduct, specifically stating that a gimmick where a white man hunting a black African-American man for sport is racist. Callahan laughed and sarcastically responded, oh, wait, is that a bad thing? Now, right there, I fire his ass. But again, is Shane Thorne chasing Reggie for the 24/7 title racist? Callahan's comments and conduct had the purpose of effect of humiliating and intimidating the plaintiff and dramatically altering her work environment for the worse. As the WWE writing team's sole person of color, plaintiff was devastated that none of her white Caucasian co-workers stepped in to complain about this discriminatory and offensive pitch. Afterwards, plaintiff spoke with Mr. Parisi, a white Caucasian writer, who revealed that he agreed with the plaintiff that the pitch was racist, but he felt too nervous to speak up about it in front of Callahan. By way of example, on or about April 10th or April 11th of 2021, WWE held its 37th annual WrestleMania event. For each of the annual WrestleManias, they have commemorative chairs. Okay. Now, all of this is about commemorative chairs. By the way, we'll get back to the Mansoor one because somehow we skipped over to Mansoor. But anyway, all this is about chairs. Now, she's claiming that everybody is allowed to take home a chair. Oh, here's the Mansoor stuff. All right. In around November 2021, a WWE writer, Mr. Zach Hyatt, admitted to the plaintiff that another black female writer, Miss Silvers, was afraid to critique his group of black wrestlers. Plaintiff asserts that the defendants engaged and continue to engage in a pattern and practice of discrimination against black female employees, African-American female employees, and minority employees. By way of example, in around late November 2021, racially discriminatory comments were casually made by the plaintiff's white Caucasian lead writer Callahan about a Muslim wrestler. Ms. Silvers and the plaintiff, the only black writers on the team, were tasked to pitch a love storyline between wrestlers Aaliyah Mansour and Angel Garza, who are both Muslim. I know what you're going to say. Ms. Silvers and the plaintiff pitched that Mansour has a secret that he's keeping from Aaliyah. Callahan disagreed with the secret that Miss Silvers and the plaintiff wanted for the character. Instead, Callahan suggested, how's about his secret is he's behind the 9/11 attacks? Miss Silvers nervously left and said, no, let's not do that. Let's talk about the other part of the pitch. And this goes on and on. Additionally, Heller shared a sexist pitch for a Muslim female wrestler, wherein the said female wrestler lacked authority over her own mind and body. Again, Ms. Silvers and the plaintiff created a love storyline between wrestlers Aaliyah Mansour and Angel Garza. In this pitch, Aaliyah and Mansour were meant to fall in love, where a jealous Angel Garza tries to break them up. The pitch made Aaliyah appear intelligent and confident in herself and her desires, containing Aaliyah speaking up for herself against both Angel and Mansour and having her love and affection earned. It kind of feels like that bad Bugs Bunny cartoon when Bugs Bunny and the other rabbit were in the rabbit holes trying to impress the female rabbit. All right, Miss Silvers and the plaintiff pitched this storyline to Heller, who expressed confusion about Aaliyah and her choices, particularly her never wanting to be with Angel, who is the obvious villain in the story. Heller was also confused that Aaliyah wasn't crying on the stairs after her breakup with Mansour. Heller then counterpitched that the plaintiff make a storyline, love triangle, objectifying and bimbofying Aaliyah. Heller's sexist counterpitch, including Angel being forward and aggressive in his efforts to date Aaliyah, Aaliyah being easily swayed by Angel's evil tactics, and Aaliyah being confused about which guy she should date, oscillated between the two men until the end of the storyline. Heller and Callahan made these discriminatory comments, while the plaintiff and other female black African-American wrestlers were in his presence in the writer's room. Heller and Callahan's comments and conduct were clearly discriminatory. By the way of example, Lubrano met with the plaintiff and Miss Silvers and deliberately downplayed Heller and Callahan's discriminatory remarks by claiming that she heard it was a joke. And wacky things are said in the writer's room all the time. When the plaintiff indicated that it doesn't make it okay, Lubrano responded, I know, but look at the waves we're making in the company. 4 years ago, no women worked on the writing team. Lebrano followed up and told the plaintiff she was doing a great job and that Mr. McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, and Miss McMahon love her writing, but she should be careful to pick and choose her battles. However, despite her complaints, defendants refused to take any immediate or appropriate corrective action in response. So now, everyone, we get to WrestleMania 38. By the way of example, on March 29, 2022, one of the plaintiff's fellow writers asked Callahan if he and the other writers could help themselves to a WrestleMania chair at the end of the event. Peppermint would inform the writers that, yeah, but you have to wait until after the show to take the chair. Another senior writer, Hyatt, said, yeah, you could take it during the show. Yet another senior writer, Michael Kirschenbaum, added that people had been allowed to take WrestleMania branded chairs at previous year's WrestleManias. My friends, as you read this, and I'm not going to go through every point, I just can't picture a writing team talking that fucking much on a WrestleMania about a chair. You know, like, can they take it home? Yeah. Can you take it home? No, after the event. No, you could take it now. You know, in the past, we used to be able to take it. No, you could take it. No, but, you know, you can't take it because you're black, but you could take it because you're white. And, yeah, that's where that ends up over here, everyone. At no point did the WWE lead writers who were present during this extensive discussion instruct the plaintiff that they were not entitled to remove limited edition event-specific items, including WrestleMania branded chairs from WrestleMania 38. Upon information and belief, on or about April 2nd, one Caucasian male WWE writer and one black male WWE writer removed WrestleMania branded chairs after the event. One of the Caucasian male writers took the branded chair to the writer's room in plain sight of defendant Lebrano, the WWE lead writers, the WWE vice president, Mr. Ed Koskey, and Mr. Pritchard. It is clear that WWE's actions were discriminatory given defendants did not reprimand either writer for taking the chairs. Upon that information and belief, defendants had several opportunities that evening to reprimand the employees for having taken the WrestleMania branded chairs and to prevent employees from taking the chairs. However, no point did the defendants reprimand the male WWE writers for removing the WrestleMania branded chairs. I jumped the gun with that. Here's the white part. In addition, another white WWE writer assistant, Mr. Lucas Goldman, left the writer's room to try to take a WrestleMania branded chair. Callahan and Mr. Koskey were informed that Mr. Goldman left the room to retrieve a chair. When Mr. Goldman returned to the writer's room without a chair, Callahan and Mr. Koskey playfully teased him and saying, better luck next time. Guess you'll have to settle for a paycheck. Further, at the end of the night, WWE Vice President and Senior Vice President left the venue with the plaintiff and her team, including those male employees who were in possession of WrestleMania 38 branded chairs. However, defendants did not reprimand the white male writers for taking the WrestleMania branded chairs. Further, WWE lead writers witnessed one plaintiff's white male Caucasian co-worker load the chair into a car. Callahan proceeded to enter the vehicle containing the chair. Despite numerous opportunities to do so, defendants did not reprimand or otherwise discipline any of the male white Caucasian WWE writers about taking WrestleMania 38 branded chairs after the event. On or about April 3rd, the plaintiff, Ms. Abrahams, and a co-worker each took a chair, showed their bags to security, and were allowed backstage while carrying the WrestleMania chairs. Plaintiff and her male Caucasian worker took the chairs to the writer's room where WWE lead writers and vice president and senior vice president were present. Plaintiff placed her WrestleMania branded chair next to Heller and openly discussed having taken the chair. In around the early hours of the next morning, plaintiff's supervisor emailed the writing team instructing people to return the chairs and demanding why they thought taking the chairs was a wise choice. On or about April 7th, in retaliation for engaging in protected conduct, defendants unlawfully and pretextually terminated plaintiff's employment. Likewise, WWE had a custom policy of allowing employees to take the WrestleMania movable chairs at the events without repercussion. Plaintiff asserts that the defendants engaged and continue to engage in a pattern of discrimination against black female employees, African-American female employees, and other black employees. It is clear that despite the plaintiff's excellent work performance, defendants actually terminated her employment based on her complaints about defendants' racial discrimination and due to her race and gender. While plaintiff's employment with WWE was a harrowing, traumatic experience, the events complained of herein do not reflect a unique incident, as rudimentary internet research paints a similarly distressing picture of discriminatory abuse and misconduct by WWE and those occupying the most powerful positions within WWE. For a considerable period following her termination, the plaintiff was unable to locate permanent work due to the defendant's discrimination and defamatory statements regarding her work performance. As a result, the defendant's unlawful and discriminatory actions, plaintiff has endured unlawful humiliation, resulting in extreme emotional distress, severe depression, extreme anxiety, economic harm, and physical ailments. As a result of the defendant's actions, the plaintiff felt extremely humiliated, degraded, victimized, embarrassed, and emotionally distressed. As a result of the defendant's unlawful and discriminatory actions, plaintiff has endured financial hardships and irreparable damage to her professional reputation. Plaintiff further claims aggravation, activation, and or exacerbation of any pre-existing condition. You see the next line? That's actually highlighted in orange where everything else is in yellow. I did that on purpose because line 213 is the best of it all. Plaintiff claims unlawful, constructive, and or unlawful actual discharge and also seeks reinstatement. She wants to go back to the company. Plaintiff claims a continuous practice of discrimination and makes all claims herein through the continuing violations doctrine. There's one last part I wanted to show you. Let me see if I can find it. Here, I love this line. I don't know. There's just something about this line. Prayer for relief. Prayer for relief. The plaintiff prays that the court enter judgment in her favor against the defendants containing the following relief. A declaratory judgment that the actions, conduct, and practices of the defendants complained or of herein violate the laws of the state of New York and the city of New York. An injunction and or order permanently restraining the defendants from engaging in such unlawful conduct. An award of damages in the amount to be determined at trial, but in any event, in excess of the jurisdictional limit of any court which might otherwise have jurisdiction over this matter, and blah, 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 blah. You know what I would give her, everyone? You know I would give her, everyone? I give her this. I'm dead serious. Give it a fucking chair. Give it a chair. I'm serious. Give her a chair and $1. Yeah, and a Snickers bar. Listen, man, I don't like any racist shit. You know, I have, grown in so many ways where, I totally understand even why like Kaepernick kneeled and I'm not objected to it anymore. And, we've seen some awful tragedies, as recent as last week, a lot of racial discrimination. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that Vince McMahon is an angel or anybody else is, but, to turn around and, because Reggie's a black person, that people chasing him is hunting a black person, that's not someone that should be writing for an entertainment company. And when you look at everything in those type of glasses where everything is perceived to be sexist, racist, this and that, what about all the other storylines with some of the women? I can't. And I know a lot of people, 320 characters on Twitter, for some people more, Twitter blue, podcast thumbnails, clickbait, they're going to focus on a couple of lines on there. Do I think Mansoor was ever pitched to be in a 9/11 storyline? No. But yes, there are assholes in this neighborhood that I live in that will say some pretty awful things and stereotype people. You know, my friend, I brought this up so many times in the past. My friend Asif that I used to play cards with. You know, we don't really play cards anymore, but, you know, we used to play cards with me, my friend Billy, my friend Kenny, God rest his soul, and my friend Asif, who owned and worked in a bodega on Woodhaven Boulevard, Adam's Deli, if you want to go look it up. He originally owned Otto's Deli. And, you know, not too long after 9/11, people calling me terrorist. People say that I was involved in 9/11. They look at him because he's dark and they think 9/11. Like 15 years later, you still hear stupid shit like that. You know, first of all, Mansour would have been like 4 years old or 6 years old if he was behind 9/11 in the first place. But, you know, there are assholes, especially in the entertainment world, that will pitch really, really dumb, stupid shit. I mean, look at some of the movies that you see out there. I mean, there's some pretty offensive stuff. You know, do you sue as a writer that this is so offensive that, you know, why would you want your job back? I don't get it. And she was working for a temp agency. From what I understand, she was working for a temp agency. Did WWE put down that these were the reasons why she was terminated? You know, and the chair thing, not for nothing, man. You know, like, I just can't picture a bunch of 40, 50, 60, and 70-year-olds having, like, Inspector Gadget all day long discussions about chairs. Look, I took a chair. No, you shouldn't take a chair. I took a chair. By the way, just think about this, too. She's looking at all of her employees like, hey, why is that white person taking a chair? How come I can't take it, but that white person can? You know, when you have that on your mind, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know how to react to it. You know, if you feel you're being discriminated, then yeah, everything goes under a microscope. Everything is under a magnifying glass. But I'm sorry if I spent extra time reading this, but I did it for two reasons. One, we don't have to do it again. And number two, to really put this in perspective, because you know that there's a lot of people that don't like Vince, that don't like WWE, that use it for ammunition for blogs and podcasts and everything else. And they're going to cherry pick things out of it and make it look the worst. Like I said, those websites, and I said one earlier for an example, they left out everything about how Fightful spoke to Shane Thorne, and Shane Thorne said nothing about it was racist. Maybe something was pitched after, I don't know about, but no, it was just I was chasing the 24/7 title and Reggie would always escape. That's what I tweeted a couple of days ago. It's the first thing that came to mind is like, wait a minute, because Reggie's a 24/7 champion and he could do this amazing feats in acrobatics, that because you're hunting him, it's racist? What's the solution, my friends? Is the solution you don't put the 24/7 title on Reggie? Then you have people say, well, the 24/7 title was given to this white person and this white person, but this black person was overlooked. How you can't, just in my opinion, you can't, like, I don't want to start using racial examples, but there's some pretty easy stereotypical ones out there. You know, one, for example, you know, you could think about some people who have been fired in wrestling for making really racially insensitive comments. You know, you say, okay, let's do this storyline with this, and it. That's different. But simply because somebody's chasing Reggie for the 24/7 title, your first thought is, that's racist. That's offensive. That's discriminatory. That's grounds for filing complaints. I hope you, I'm going to say this last thing, we'll move on. We'll get back to the draft because the supplemental is out. I'll say this last thing in closing. If you think back early on in that lawsuit, the first incident appears to be Bianca Belair. Don't make me take off my earrings and kick your ass. All right. Maybe that's shallow by a white person to say, and maybe that's stereotypical. For me, I didn't think there was anything wrong with it, but hey, if somebody who is black says to me, no, DT, you know, that's something that's really considered racist, okay, then I get it. Totally fine with it. take it off the table. Do not use the reference. But to turn around and your immediate thought is, let me file a complaint. You know, when somebody said to her, you know, maybe you should pick your battles a little bit better. The only reason why I say is I don't know what Miss Abraham's background is in writing in the entertainment world. But these are characters being portrayed on TV. And just because one character is dark skinned doesn't mean that they're being treated in a racist way. And if your first immediate reaction is, let me file a complaint, meanwhile, all the other writers are like, we're pitching storylines. This is 24/7 title. There's not race. And because nobody does anything about it, well, see, they're all white people and they're like, if you're WWE, how do you get out of that situation? Do you just give in? And what are you giving in to? So I wanted to put this out there to be fair. And in my honest opinion, this is someone that I don't think has a history in the entertainment world writing. And I, in my opinion, don't see how this is grounds. If she got fired for taking the chair and they used the chair as an excuse to get rid of her, and she was a problem and they found her out, she may have a case. You know, I have worked with assholes. And just because somebody is an asshole, if it doesn't violate code of conduct, especially in a publicly traded world, you have to deal with it, man. The fuck do we hire here? You have to have some legitimate reasons to terminate someone. So if they just felt, you know, she's too much of a problem, man. She thinks everything is fucking racist and it's not racist. So we got to fucking find a way. Oh, yeah. What did they do? It's like a Tom and Jerry cartoon that they fucking put the chair out there and like waiting for her to take it, like putting on a mousetrap. Was that the mousetrap? You know, Jerry Mouse, like, take the chair. Oh, she took the bait. Let's fire her. You know, she might actually have a case there. But to turn around and deem all his other stuff racist, man, I don't know. Callahan, again, I think should be fired. To even, like, joke about that, you know, I just don't think that's a problem. Listen, some people have said some ridiculously Karen stuff. They get fired. They lose their job. They say a horrible thing about someone. They stereotype someone. They get caught on camera saying something. And that's it. They get canned. Callahan probably should be canned because of this. This lawsuit, I don't know. Be honest with you. Okay. Before we get into the supplemental of the draft, and then we'll get out of here, I got 2 super shout-outs that I'd like to share with everyone. Chris Cutcher, thank you for the 5 spot. Brother, the 24/7 division was nothing but wrestlers hunting the champion the whole time. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think about, you know, R-Truth. How many times did R-Truth, like, dress up as something else, try to hide, try to do this, you know, try to escape? And none of that is deemed racist. Why would you? I don't know, man. Because Shane Thorne look, WWE stupid thinking Crocodile Dundee was still, you know, something of a thing in 2021. But just because he's chasing a black 24/7 champion doesn't make it racist. You know, that's just my honest opinion on it. You know, just keeping bias aside or anti-WWE rhetoric aside. I'm with you, man. I agree with you, Chris. 24/7 title sucked. I mean, I didn't like the majority of it, but did I ever, put it this way, did any of you ever during that time ever see something on TV and thought it was racist? Honestly. I mean, anything with that. I can't think of anything. And Chris, with a 10 spot, really hoping they don't do the women swapping belts if Rhea's drafted to Raw. I know many don't care, but to me, it devalues a year-long reign and Rhea's Mania win. I personally think the Judgment Day, after seeing what we saw with the draft yesterday, I think they should stay on Raw. Rhea Ripley's probably better for Raw. Let's be honest. You got to also think about Charlotte Flair. If Bianca Belair stays on SmackDown, I think Charlotte Flair is. But here's the problem too. You got Becky Lynch on Raw. Is Becky going to feud with Rhea Ripley? So Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley, I don't know if they go on the same roster. Maybe you put Rhea on SmackDown and you put Charlotte on SmackDown. But unfortunately, again, look at Bianca's promo on SmackDown from a hotel room. I was baffled when I saw that. And I'm like, oh, what about Rhea? It made no sense at all why that was done and why that even passed through creative. She recorded that. Hold it for a week. Why the immediate reaction? I don't know, man. And again, this is Triple H heading creative, and the scapegoat for a lot of people is, oh, that's probably Vince's decision. Triple H didn't make that decision, but Vince did. This is to blame Vince all over again. This time it's not Vince Russo in TNA, it's Vince McMahon in WWE. Whenever something was bad in TNA, blame Vince, blame Vince, blame Vince, blame Vince. Then you find out years later, oh, Vince Russo didn't have anything to do with this. He did have to do with some shit, not all of it. All right. Supplemental draft. My friends, share it with me. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go seek it out myself. Who's going to get the credit? All right, never mind. Never mind. Is this Raw? Okay, I think we got it. Oh, I'll give Michael Gonzalez the credit. He's the one that posted it. All right, here we go. On Raw, we have drafted supplemental maximum male models. Dexter Lumis. Get ready for the index segments, everybody. Dexter Lumis remains on Raw. Candice LeRae remains on Raw. Viking Raiders. Yeah, I think they were going to Raw after being laid out last week. Now remember, these don't kick in until after Backlash. Viking Raiders next week take on the OC on SmackDown. That will be the Viking Raiders swan song when they go to Raw. I don't think there's any chance that the Viking Raiders are going to win next week, but the Viking Raiders will be going to Raw. Apollo Crews. NXT's back on the main roster. That is good. Apollo Crews on Raw. Got some potential great matches right there. Apollo Crews. I like it. Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville on Raw. Natalya. Zoey Stark coming to Raw. That's a little surprise. I honestly thought Zoey Stark might be better for SmackDown. Especially you got Natalya on Raw as well. Pretty interesting to have Natalya and Zoey Stark on Raw. I would have thought they both would have been better for SmackDown, especially since I think Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez are going to stay on SmackDown, even though they're tag champs. But JD McDonough going to Raw. So again, Raw, maximum male models, Dexter Lumis, Candice LeRae, Viking Raiders, Apollo Crews, Chelsea Green, Sonya Deville, Natalya, Zoey Stark, JD McDonough. Now, who's going to SmackDown? Lacey Evans and Hit Row. That's it. Remember how we were saying earlier that last night's draft was very even and Raw's 3 hours and SmackDown is 2? Now you see your 3 hour. You see your filler between hour 2 and hour 3. SmackDown only got Lacey Evans and Hit Row. We do have some free agents. These are people who have not been signed. This is interesting. Von Wagner is mentioned. So Von Wagner will probably appear on Raw and on SmackDown. Von Wagner might be your next big prospect. So come Monday after Backlash, you might see a little bit of Von Wagner. Von Wagner is a free agent. Also, Dolph Ziggler and Mustafa Ali are free agents. Why? Why? I don't understand that. Like, why? I mean, listen, I know Mustafa Ali's character has not been, as good lately, but why is there such resistance for that? let's be honest. Would we look in hindsight, and if this was part of the lawsuit that Mustafa Ali was, I don't know how I feel about that. I personally think, unless, you know what, maybe he shows up on NXT. A lot of us have said before, I'd like to see, Mustafa Ali back in NXT, doing a little bit, going at it with some of the guys, currently there. I think Mustafa Ali versus Carmelo Hayes would be awesome. And I don't care how much you dislike the upcoming match at Backlash, this is confusing. Omos and MVP are free agents. Omos and MVP. Omos, hottest free agent? Raw, SmackDown, who's going to get him? I don't know what the purpose is for that, man. Like, I don't know. I'm not digging the free agent stuff here. But Omos, maybe they're going to feature him on Raw and on SmackDown. But again, SmackDown gets Hit Row and Lacey Evans. That is it. And free agents are Omos, MVP, Mustafa Ali, Dolph Ziggler, and Von Wagner. I don't want to cause any controversy, but don't discount the possibility that maybe somebody on that list is ultimately going to get released. That's a free agent. I'm not saying Ali or Omar. I'm not saying anybody in particular, but there might be a secondary reason why somebody on that free agent list is there. There might be something else going on. Just pointing that out. So, JD McDonough going to Raw. I think Ilya, well, you know what? JD McDonough. I could see him. Oh, man, I could see him going at it with Seth Rollins. JD, I want to see Ilya, man. I think Ilya Dragunov's got to go to Raw. Now with the Imperium on Raw, I think he's got to go to Raw. But not bad, man. Not too bad. I can't really complain all that much. But that's heavily Raw filled. So, but that is it. That is it for today. So we are right at the 2-hour mark. So I'm going to get out of here. I see that one final super chat came in, and I want to thank Kevon Lewis for the 10 spot. Much appreciated. Do I think they might draft Rhea to Raw and have her and Bianca swap the titles like they did with Becky and Charlotte? Again, I don't know if you saw Bianca's promo yesterday on SmackDown. She talked about looking forward to defending the SmackDown Women's Championship on SmackDown. Rhea holds that title. Yesterday created so much confusion. On top of it, Bianca's on SmackDown, and so is Io Sky. So if you ask me, how do you bail this out? How do you bail it out? You're going to have to put Rhea on Raw, and you're going to have to swap the titles. That means Bianca Belair's streak as Raw Women's Champion comes to an end. She will not be breaking any record anytime soon. Bianca will become the SmackDown Women's Champion. Rhea Ripley will become the Raw Women's Champion. Their reigns will have to start back at 0, technically, and that's how you do it. If Io Sky dethrones Bianca Belair, the only other option is what I said earlier, which honestly, the more I think about it, it's stupid. Yes, I'm calling my idea stupid. If Io Sky beats Bianca Belair at Backlash, you could make an announcement. Triple H makes an announcement on the website or on Twitter or social media somewhere and says, because Io Sky is now the Raw Women's Champion, she will now be moved to Raw. You could split her away from Damage Control just like that. And then Io Sky could remain Raw Women's Champion and Rhea Ripley can remain on SmackDown. But I don't think they're going to do that. I kind of think they're going to do the swapping of the titles. Bianca's promo, I think, gave it away yesterday. Bianca specifically said she looks forward to defending the SmackDown Women's Championship. And I'm like, well, there goes a 1-year reign. But, the amount of days, I guess, on the women's side doesn't matter as much as what's going on right now. So, but thank you, Kavan, for that. And thank you all for joining me today. So I would really love some of your feedback. I'm dead serious. I would, especially for the lawsuit stuff. Am I like not seeing something here, or am I way off on something? Again, I'm for criticizing Vince and WWE. I'm totally fine with calling out, inappropriate behavior and people being penalized for it. I look at this and I just feel that, there are things on there that I just personally, it's so hard to try to explain it and understand it and defend it. And I know someone out there is going to say, DT, you're not black, you don't understand. And I get that. I expect that from people out there. But, make me understand why someone in doing writing for an entertainment company, sees someone in a storyline and immediately thinks it's racist simply because the person is black. I don't know. I don't see it. I don't recall anybody in 2021 when Reggie was doing what he's doing. I don't remember anybody saying like, wow, that's racist. Wow, they're chasing him. That's racist. Chasing a black man down the street for a title, that's racist. I don't remember anybody saying that. So when a writer says that and is filing complaint, like, what would have happened if somebody said to her, there's an entertainment. We're not doing storylines based on color. It's based on a person. It's not color. I mean, do you worry about saying that because you might get put in a lawsuit too, that this person was insensitive and this and that? How do you make it better? I don't know. So I hope you enjoyed the real talk. I'm very curious to see how other people handle it. People handle it how they want, but me, I just wanted to take the legit, serious, straight up side of it. And tell me if you think I'm wrong in any of that. So tomorrow, I will be here for the sit down, 8:05 p.m. So if you have any questions lingering from the draft, any ideas from what we talked about today going forward with the draft, anything from the lawsuit, Trinity, anything, show up tomorrow, because whatever Q&A you got for me live, that's what we're going to get into. So I have nothing on the agenda tomorrow other than your questions. So much love, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend. Here in New York, it's raining. It's miserable. It's supposed to be like this all weekend. So we'll be indoors for the most part. But, yeah, try to make the best of it. So all the best to you. Be well.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody. while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.